Hi, welcome to tonight's edition where John, Dave, and myself are going to look back over our emphatic victory against Zebre, all the other Pro 12 action, and in the second half preview our big game in the European Cup against Montpellier. So boys, 10 try rout against Zebre.
It just goes to show you, doesn't it? We so rarely get to play our first team against Zebre, and you can kind of see why now. We usually score 4 or 5 tries against them. This time it was 10, and it was real like a training match.
It was a very strong side against a very crap one.
So the worrying thing is, how does it set us up for next week? But I'm sure we'll get to that later. It's not ideal preparation like playing Munster and Lansdowne Road would have been, but it was a good training match. It was good to get Sexton back running around the field again, and he probably wasn't going to get too injured against Zebre.
Tell that to Sean Cronin.
Yeah.
Poor Sean.
Poor old Sean Cronin. Yeah, it was off your man's hat-trick try.
Yeah.
I didn't see it at the game, but I just saw the tries back, and something hobbling just before your man got his hat-trick. O'Loughlin. That was bad luck for both Leinster and Sean Cronin. But yeah, it was what it was. It's on one hand, it's brilliant to see Leinster scoring 10 tries and running around curing cancer, and
That's what training sessions are for. Open training sessions.
Causing world peace to break out all over the place. But on the other hand, it's such a one-sided game. It's hard to get too excited about it either.
You can't win against Italian sides. I say it before. I've often said it.
Every time, Dave. Every single time we play one.
And every time it becomes more and more apparent, especially against Zebre. I've been a defender of the Italian teams in the Pro 12, but I've kind of reached the end of my patience with Zebre anyway. Whether they,
I think the Italian Union might have as well.
Even though they seem to be better than Treviso on a year-on-year result basis, they don't seem to be half as professional or seem to be half as interested. Look, here it is. We scored. We got the 5 points we needed.
Yeah.
We got a nice bump to our try scoring stats.
Yeah.
Only one player got injured, and it's one, fortunately, that we have replacements for.
So
So
like we do in the back row. Sean Cronin, you're talking about?
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've a lot more cover in the back row, is what I'm saying.
Oh no, but we do have replacement. I mean, we have James Tracy. We have
do.
Kurt Strauss. So at the end of the day, it's nice. Next.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of leads me on to the point I had written down here was, like, has it come to the end of the road for the Italian teams? Because the experiment doesn't seem to be working, does it?
Does it or does? I mean, are Italy? Ultimately,
Tough
are
one,
Italy
that.
doing better in the Six Nations than they were before this started?
Possibly not, but let's not forget that
They're a new team.
Well, what happened? You had your Diego Dominguez's and all these lads in the 90s, and Troncon and all these who were just dying away when Italy got into the Six Nations, and they had a bloody good team in the 90s, and that they kind of performed above themselves maybe in the first few years.
I'm not even talking about in comparison to that team. I'm talking about in comparison to, we'll say, Italy 2007. Before these two teams, their only predecessor came into the Pro 12.
Well, they're always good for one win, right?
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think they
They
are.
might beat South Africa.
I think Italy are doing slightly better than they were before the teams, because I think like you said, they were good for one win every 2 years. Now, Italy are aiming at 2 and 3 wins a year.
But do you not think, though, that, say, a Treviso or Zebre should be doing a bit of a Connacht on it? Like, insofar as,
Yeah, I do.
like,
Really?
exceeding their expectation, and they rarely do. Like, I just looked over last couple of seasons' results. Like, Zebre won 5 matches out of 22 last year, and Treviso only won 3. And the previous year,
Probably reversed.
I think Zebre won 3 and Treviso won 3 and drew 1. So, do you know what I mean? Like, it's very, very poor return.
The only reason that those teams meet their expectations is because expectations of them are so low.
But I have to say, when Treviso joined, that's going to really give them a boost, because I remember, like, even when we played them in the European Cup or the Heineken Cup, I think in the 04 season, and like, we did beat them quite well, but at that stage they weren't part of the Pro
Excellent.
the Pro 12.
Excellent.
So I thought, well, if they're in a kind of amateur-ish league where not all the teams are professional, how good will they be when they're mixing with the Leinsters and the Munsters and the Ospreys? But they don't seem to have really improved. But the other side of the coin is, I suppose, that, like, it's only maybe 4 seasons ago we put up a very good display against the All Blacks in the second test in 2012. But the third test, we were beaten by 60 points to nil. And if all teams took the mentality of, oh, we stuffed that team the last time we played them, why would we bother playing them again? Do you know, we wouldn't have got the chance in
Well, see,
Chicago.
The thing is, we're talking about how we feel about those teams. We don't know what the Italian federations.
No.
Obviously, they're not best pleased with Zebre. We don't know how they feel about how it's working for them. For all we know, they could be relatively happy about what it's doing for player development,
Well-
what it's doing for the professional pathway in Italy.
But didn't a load of Treviso guys not leave? I mean,
Yeah.
one
yeah.
season I
That
think
happened with
5
the-
went to Leicester.
That happened with the unsure end to the season they had.
Yeah.
And they didn't know whether they'd be staying in the Pro 12, and it just turned into a mess.
And especially if they
And then all
if
the
they
players
pay
left.
to be, like, I mean, I don't think Leinster or Munster or whoever pay to be in the Pro 12, whereas the Italian teams do, right?
Well,
Not anymore.
They
No.
used
No,
to.
no, no? Okay, well, they used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because they were well, a couple of things. The Italian union had a lot of money.
Mhm.
Second thing is that everybody had to travel out there,
Yeah.
twice a year. So that was supposed to be to cover that for the first few years. They stopped paying it, I think, 2 seasons
Yeah.
ago.
They weren't bringing big TV either to the.
Well, there was
Well-
all these rumours that Fiat were going to come in on board and there's 60 million market and
Well, there are a 60 million market. That's one
It
thing.
is the biggest rugby playing country in the world. It's the big. I mean, it's the big. Well, when I say in the world, it's the biggest tier 1 country in the world in terms of population. I mean, it is. It is a huge
There's only
population.
50 million in
but
England.
how many?
60 million in the
60
UK.
million in the UK.
But how many of them would sit down on a Saturday to watch, or a Friday night to watch Treviso?
Yeah, well,
Not
that's, the
enough,
thing, that's the
obviously.
thing. Not enough. But the problem is, I mean, if you've got 60 million people who are, well educated, relatively well off. I mean, they're typical Europeans. I mean, that is a market that you do want. I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't want to be chasing Georgians. I mean, running all over the Caucasus trying to convert wrestlers into rugby players is fine, but it's for the growing the game. But at the top level, it's not going to work. So Italy is kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
The problem is making them better. And people are saying, "Oh, we should get rid of Italy and bring in a European national team or a Belgian team or whatever." That just would they get hockeyed. I mean, the best Six Nations A team would find it very, very difficult to live with Connacht Eagles.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, I think you might be
I'm not
overrating it
over it.
slightly.
I'm not over it.
Well-
Do you think Bosnia or Croatia would have a hope? Croatia, I think, are Six Nations A champions, aren't they?
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's a level below. Georgia are a level above. Yeah, I'm not
Okay,
talking,
sorry,
yeah,
I thought you were talking about the Georgia level.
No.
Okay. Yeah, on one hand, one thing is the market, right? You just said that 60 million, but the other thing is international rugby. Like our league is a union-run league in the main,
Yeah.
and what the individual unions want to do is supply players to their national teams, and the bigger picture is to try and get more teams into that have a possible chance of getting into a World Cup, grow the game. And the more Italies there are getting to the right level, because let's face it, rugby is an expensive and very technical sport that it's not easy to get up to speed on. You've got to put a lot of money into it just for, it's not like a ball on a yard of grass with soccer. Like, you literally need a pair of jumpers and some boots, and that's it. So
Ron manager.
Ron manager, yeah, exactly. So it's in the interest of union-backed league to try and improve a team for international rugby as well.
Yeah.
Having Conor O'Shea over there might be a few green shoots around. The talk behind the scenes seems to be that they're going to go for a Roman team rather than Zebre. Zebre was I think designed as it was an alternative to Ironi, but it's like it's a completely union run team. Like, it's basically a development team for the Italy national rugby team. That's what it is. It's not really like Treviso has.
But the two teams
A backer.
but the two teams that are in the league
Zebre
currently
doesn't.
are devaluing rugby in Italy.
Are they though?
Well, okay, put it this way. If the first thing people talk about, and it went back to the Heineken Cup and this new European Cup, there's an Italian team in your group, therefore two teams come out of the group.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're immediately talking about, look, they are kind of Mickey Mouse teams that are in it, especially when there was two Italian teams. You're just dying to get into into a group
That-
with an
that-
Italian team.
that's
There
true.
was Ballast
But
Racing
but
Metro.
the development of the game isn't about
Racing
the top
Metro
end.
got to the final last year.
But the development of the game isn't about the top end. The development of the game is about
But
other
hold
levels.
on,
And maybe that's
this is the
and that-
elite of
but the F-
European
the
rugby.
What the FIR want from those teams, for all we know, they could be delivering 100% in terms of
Doubt it.
development
But
of the game.
does it?
Well, I don't think Zebre are.
Getting beaten 70-0 every week, or even 40-0 every week, or 20-0 every
The thing that
week,
would,
is not good for your
the thing
head.
that puzzles me is that's okay, that's fine, and get rid of Zebre because they're not doing the job, and then moving to a team in Rome. There's not a lot of rugby played in Rome. The one area of Italy where rugby does actually have a certain amount of traction is actually where Zebre are based in and around Parma.
Well, no one
Other
goes
areas-
to that. No one goes to them, Dave. Like
I know, but it's
you
still-
see the vast swathes of
It's
empty
still
seats.
the rugby area of Italy.
there's
That's
no
the
one
thing.
watching
But
them.
there's a population in Rome, and even if you, it's a bit like Leinster. If you if you compare the population of Limerick to the population of Dublin, Munster are batting above their average, getting the amount of per head of population into Thomond Park. If you look at Rome, compare it to Parma, it's a much bigger
Yeah.
city. If you interest 0.015% of the population of Rome in rugby,
Oh yeah, no,
You're on a winner.
And look, they've moved from the old Stadio Flaminio when it was before it was developed or redeveloped, and it was 25,000. Then it went up to about 35,000, and they've outgrown that, and they've moved to the Olympic Stadium, which is
Yeah.
60 or
Well,
70,000.
there you go. So surely some of those people who go to that, they can't all be corporate jollyists.
Well, I would suggest no. I wouldn't suggest that, but I would suggest the vast majority are people down from the north.
Yeah, probably.
Well, where
I
are they
would-
when it comes time to turn out for Treviso?
Well, that's the thing. They're not turning. That's the problem. That's the problem I'm saying. That they're not turning out for Treviso. They're not turning out for. Well, maybe not so much Treviso, but they're not turning out for Zebre in particular. Are they going to Division de Excellencia games? I don't know. I know very little about it actually. But there is something. I mean, since those teams have come into the Pro 12, like you say, they've gone from 25,000 to 80,000. So they are doing something.
Something's happening.
Yeah.
Maybe not fast enough for us, or well enough for us.
They have. I mean, Italy, Team Italy has trebled its gate.
Think about the alternatives, though, Jason. What do you do? Do you bring in another team, from somewhere else? Do you just go back to 10 teams?
I don't know.
Do you,
I don't know. I don't have the answer, John. But I just think
Yeah, I
that
thought you did.
no. Well, I just know that when you go to a Leinster match and there's a very kind of lackluster crowd at it.
As there was,
as
it was
there-
10,000.
There was 10,000, and I thought there was a surprise to see that there was 10 when the official.
I would suggest that for Zebre, that's actually not. A
Well,
bad
I so did I,
crowd.
but I didn't think it was 10,000 being in the stadium myself. But that's what they said it was. That's what it was. However, when you're going through, I mean, I have to say, I lost interest after about the fifth try. I just kind of, well, I mean, there was no match. It was just like
Yeah,
going,
it was
like watching unopposed. And
It
we
was
have
a
10
bit.
tries to get through, and we're just going to fly through. Now, there were some excellently
through.
taken tries, but for going to a sporting event is about two teams
Contest,
competing in a
contest,
contest,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
you couldn't say that was a contest, and that's professional sport. It's not, it's not kind of some sort of kumbaya where we're all getting around and trying to bring up the underdogs and make them
And-
champions. It's like this is a professional, and it devalues our league and it devalues our sport by having teams when there are mismatches in it like that.
The problem with say the
Can't
Zebre
totally disagree
situation,
with
and
that.
you're comparing it to say Ireland is when Ireland lost by 60-0, or when Bourgoin came and whatever.
94,
Those
17.
stand out because they were exceptional results. Putting 70 points on Zebre isn't that, or Zebre getting a atrocious beating isn't that unusual. They always get a atrocious beating, or pretty much always.
Well, like if we put our full team out against them like we did this time, every time,
Yeah.
they would be getting 70 nils. We'd be looking to push that up to 80 or 90, So,
Anyway,
shall
we'll
we
move on.
push through the tries?
We will. We've got 10 of them to get through.
Some of them are excellent, in fairness.
Robbie Henshaw was great for a lot of them.
Unopposed
Yeah.
I have
as
to
they
say,
were.
I thought our centre partnership was on fire.
Yeah,
No, they did.
I thought our entire three-quarter line was superb.
Yeah,
Great pass here from,
fantastic.
and it's not in any of the replays. I don't know why
Yeah.
they chose not to show it. The pass doesn't make any of the replays. The pass is what makes that try. It was and a lovely bit of vision from McGrath.
There
You
was
see
a
that-
chance
was.
if that was against a committed team, that wouldn't have made it to Sean
Well, that
O'Brien.
was still only 4 minutes gone, so they would have been committed. They
Yeah,
might have been
but-
good, but they would have been committed.
Somebody would would
it's
have jumped
lovely
and
hands.
caught that. There was some great. There
Now,
was
we'll
ball on
come
the-
back to this issue here later on because we're going to talk about the new tackle interpretations.
Yeah. If we hadn't have scored a try, that might have been a card and a penalty
We had a
try.
3 on zip overlap there.
Yeah.
But we mentioned it last week that the team has a philosophy now of wanting to move the ball,
Yeah.
and we are sticking to it. Even if it's against weaker opposition, you still have to go through your.
It wasn't
You still have to go through the motions.
wasn't that convincing looking them all at the first instance though, was it? And I think is it yeah, it is Hayden Triggs that eventually gets out with it. Another good. Well, he looks well, you see, because he's got such good hands and he can step in at scrum half and do all that, you know. So
He might be.
unlike some other second rows who just do all the grunt work, and you know, he probably does a little bit less grunt work than some, but
better footballer.
he's a better footballer. Yeah.
He might be
He
kind
looks a
of.
back rower, kind
He,
of.
he might be our kind of Ali Muldowney role filler. As
Well,
it
he
were.
has the hands for it. So does
Yeah.
Toner, though. Yeah, Toner's
In
great
fairness,
hands.
Toner's a lovely footballer, but we've known that for a while, you know.
It's the Blackhall Gales coming out. And
He's footballer, not fighter, Jay.
And here we go with Zane Kirshner doing a nice little dummy and offload to our scrum half McGrath.
Who had an excellent game.
Who
I
had an
thought.
excellent
He did.
game?
Yeah, he was really superb.
He's a very committed player. He really is. No matter who we're playing, whether he's never overawed by big opposition, and he never falls asleep
Yeah,
with
he-
opposition like that.
Great catch there from another Black Hog special. The thing with Luke, he play well, maybe he'll play poorly, but he'll always give 100%.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. He's very committed. I'd say he's the kind of guy that always wants to improve.
Yeah.
And guess what? He has. I was looking at the amount of caps he has. He's like 60 odd caps.
Yeah, he's a
or
huge
70
number,
odd
yeah,
caps. He's
yeah.
really racked up the caps.
Devon Toner has 191 Leinster caps.
That's right, yeah.
I think he's the fourth highest,
Yeah.
isn't he? Something like that. And like that's the fellas that are like
Shane Jennings.
that have played for
Gordon
years.
Darcy. Leo's up there, I think. Shamey Heaslip's ahead of him. He's in the 220s.
I mean, it was getting a bit cakewalky at this stage.
Yeah.
I think it was just around this point that my interest levels went.
It began to wane.
Well, that was our bonus point try, was it? No, it wasn't actually.
Yes,
Oh,
it was.
it was, yeah. Yeah, we got a fifth one before half time. That was Healy, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
But like when your forwards are scoring the tries, that's a sign that you're beating them up. You're not flinging the ball around trying to look cool. And like Triggs, Healy, and Sean O'Brien scored those.
Yeah,
three of those
we were
four
doing it
tries.
the right way, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And we switched to numbers 11 and 13 for the next five
They decided
tries.
to take over.
Very interesting that the way Luke McGrath broke from that scrum. You
Yeah.
very rarely see a scrum half break and decide to put the ball back in.
Mm-hmm.
He does it again here.
There was no one getting him, was there?
No. He is. I
Great
think
bit of
he's.
zip.
I'd love to see him in a straight foot race against some of the more guys who we know are super quick, just to see what he's,
Brian
what he's
Habana
capable
and a
of.
cheetah, you mean?
Yeah. I'd like to see what he's capable of
747.
at top end, because he looks like he's cruising, you know.
Mm.
That's his fifth try.
I mean, you
in
just
2
blast
games.
past your man there.
Yeah, 5 tries in 2 games. You don't get that too often.
Must have been something they'd identified on the old video that they were slow to disengage on that side,
You never
or
know.
that they were just shit.
Well, 5 tries in each half, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Nice and symmetric.
pretty nice. So we switched over to the backs now for most of the rest until
It made it
the
easy to
very
keep
last
track
one.
of the number of tries because you just divided by 7 because Johnny Sexton and Ross Byrne were kicking so well.
Yeah. Did you see actually Ross Byrne didn't get given a kicking tee for one of the tries and he was there?
Yeah.
Look, he was right in front of us there. He was looking at the bench going, what the
They
story?
didn't have to tee it up on the ground.
He had to do
Yeah,
the
he was
old-fashioned...
less
Yeah,
than
the Ali
best.
Campbell kicking
The old-fashioned
lumps
way,
out of the
yeah.
grass.
He still put it over.
If he's anything like any other out half, I'd say they heard about that all week.
And yes, it is starting to look a bit like a...
Nice line there, I'll
Lovely
say.
line.
Yeah.
And Johnny delays the pass, just lovely.
Well, that was the most important thing, that he came through unscathed
Oh, yeah,
after
yeah.
60
Yeah.
minutes. or
I hope he
4
comes through the
60.
next one unscathed.
This is where Cronin got injured, is it?
Yeah, he literally, you see it right now as he...
No,
as
it's
he
not
takes-
this one.
Is
No,
it not this
no.
one? No, you're right. It's your man's hat trick. He does
Yeah.
it. And for our radio interviewers, the
Leinster
dark
team,
green ball is behind it.
Yeah, this is O'Loughlin's third try, and then again a maul that was less than impressive.
Yeah,
It must be said.
but it didn't need to be.
No, it didn't need to be, but you know it will need to be on Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
O'Loughlin, just the right man at the right time, with the right amount of pace.
it's always a good habit to develop if you're a winger, is to trail a guy who's going to make a line break. You know, I remember, funnily enough, Josh Cronfeld used to always trail Jonah Longman.
Yeah.
He used to pick up so many tries from offloads from Jonah
Exactly,
Longman.
and I'm sure many fella that played with Brian O'Driscoll.
Yeah.
And
Followed him round.
Ringrose was almost
Yeah,
O'Driscoll.
this is the unfortunate one here. This is
Yeah,
where
I see him.
you see him
Oh.
going there.
There. Oh, I can feel that. But
Lovely hands all the same.
the show still went on, and he rolled over for his third try.
Ringrose did lovely there for that
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. And poor Al Shawnee, he was heavy strapping on the leg that he did, so maybe he had a knee problem as well before that. Maybe that being unbalanced threw him off, and that's what did his hamstring. You know, sometimes muscles work in you know, when you have a weakness in one place, you're overcompensating somewhere else, and boom, you pull something.
It was nicely done all the same, wasn't
It
it?
really was, yeah. Now, in fairness, it wasn't done against the most committed
Yeah.
team in
At
world
this
rugby,
stage, they'd a man in the bin for a tip tackle,
and they wanted to go home.
and that was almost like a training move.
It was.
Actually, I'd say you probably got a harder tackling in training ground.
Yeah, but
You
you
know?
still have to do it, and your passes
Oh, you
still
do, yeah,
have to
yeah.
stick, you know.
And now a lot of ball did hit the deck, in fairness, but they threw around so much of it that it was still a reasonably low percentage.
That one didn't work. Here's another one, long in a minute.
Yeah. And it's good to see. We're going to need it next week. We're going to need to be moving players around the field.
And next, as T.G. Carr described him, the Shanador of the team.
Yeah, everybody seems to be adding a year onto his age. I think it's because he was born in December.
That try reminded me of some of the ones that he used to score when he was 10 years younger. He used to score a lot of tries out on the wing,
Yeah,
and then he seemed to
still able for it.
I know, but his tries seemed to dry up there for a few seasons. But they sort of,
He kind of changed his game.
he did a bit. Maybe players he's playing around probably changed as well.
There's lovely hands there.
Well, as players or as fans of other provinces will say, he always plays well when it comes up to contract renewal time.
Well, that's a good time to play well.
Yeah.
It is a good time to play well and not get injured. Yeah, well, he has all but signed a contract, they say, to last him until he's 36, not 37, as everybody seems to be saying all over the internet. Don't get born in December is the
Tell me
rule
about
there. You're a year older.
So anyway,
Everyone says I'm 46 when actually I'm 23.
and you look at it as well. But
I
grey
think
hair.
that's that your wife wanted to trade you in for two 23
Oh, that's
year
right,
olds. That's what it was.
that's exactly what it was. So that
Yeah, I think they're called Burn.
the 5-pointer win
Burn, Dave, burn.
keeps us in third. And but like you mentioned on the opening try there, that Ringrose went through and their fullback after 4 minutes
Yeah.
clobbered him around the head and shoulders.
Yeah.
There was supposed to be no leniency.
No, I was expecting carnage this weekend, and in many ways, in many leagues, and in other
He's
games,
playing next week.
we got carnage. Except in our game, where we had a young and seemingly sensible referee. Now, I don't like the application. I don't like when people say, "Why can't the referees use common sense?" They don't need to use common sense. They have a law book.
They're not allowed.
They don't need to. They have a law book. Apply the laws. So, but I was glad that he decided to leave it until the next day for the laws to come in, because it could have been ridiculous. I mean, they would have ended up with 12 players. You know.
Especially after 4 minutes. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is when you score a try, a lot of things get glossed over.
Yeah, well, that's true.
When you don't score a try,
He might have gone back to look at
people
it.
go back and say, "Oh, I'm going to have a look at
Yeah.
that," and then you might be penalty try and yellow card because he was the last offender and Ringrose is through.
There was all sorts of mad stuff going on, say, for example, in the Scarlets Ulster game.
Yeah,
Um,
Who was that ref? Do you remember?
I can't remember who it was.
Was
No,
it
I do. It was
Maitreya?
Maitreya. It was Maitreya. It was Marius
Maitreya,
Maitreya. Yeah. But this guy was a young guy. I mean, this was I've never seen him ref before.
No, me neither.
I think his name was Daniel, was it, or Davy? Simon Daniel or something like that.
Like,
A
not sure.
young enough guy, Welsh. Looked good.
He's
looked
fine,
competent,
yeah. He's fine.
In general, I am against the application of common sense on the rugby field. Though that's what the law book is for.
You hate Nigel Owens then?
Nigel Owen is a lot more doctrinaire than people think he is. Just because
he decides which rules to apply
he
when.
tends to manage the game very well. You see, so he doesn't
does.
need to apply very many laws because the players just want to play rugby when he's reffing.
Okay. We'll give you a bit of that.
But like, if there are situations where there's a definite high tackle and it should be penalised, but there's other times that the guy goes in at a relatively low level
And rides.
and right, but so has the player who's carrying the ball.
yeah,
and
yeah.
if the guy goes down, if a guy who's 5'8" and he crouches down, and you've got Devin Toner trying to tackle him, it's practically impossible for Toner to make a tackle. And what are you going to do? Let him go walk? You're not going to let him walk by you. So you have to make some form of attack.
Well, you're not allowed. It has always been a law against trying to avoid the tackle by jumping out of it or whatever. That's always been in the laws. And ducking into the tackle, I think, has always been illegal as well. So that's kind of catered for already.
Well, there was an interesting one in Exeter versus
Sounds
Saracens
like a
Yes.
court case.
Yeah, the ones
the
yeah,
other
so
day.
yeah.
Brad Barrett swing an arm into a guy who then ducked down, possibly because
Where'd you go now? You can see he was Sparko.
into a guy's shoulder straight to the head. The guy who gave the shoulder straight to the head was sent off, and Brad Barrett was not. I think they're both being cited.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure, but both of them could have been, yellow and red, or red. There could have been two reds, or yellow and a red. It could have been. It could have been carnage for Saracens.
The thing about the tackle riding up, that's been part of the law since 2007. When they changed, where referees were told you used to referee the tackle where it started. Then they were told to referee. It changed in 2007. You referee the tackle where it finishes. So the riding up thing, but ducking into a tackle is
illegal.
contrary to the laws anyway. So
It's going to take a while
yeah,
for it all to shake out.
But isn't that what the head of the English professional players said? Like, you're bringing something in mid-term, which seems crazy. Whereas if they had waited till the start of the season,
Yeah, well then you've got start of the season in.
well, no, you make a date and you say in Europe it's the start of the season, and in the Southern Hemisphere it's the 1st of
Yeah,
June.
and then, well, I agree entirely, but there's an element as well of a syllogism about this. It's we must do something.
Yeah.
This is something.
because of
we must do
because
this.
of the
Yeah,
furore
because
of the
yeah.
Ireland-New Zealand
Yeah.
game in Lansdowne
Yeah.
Road.
Well, because of fury of a
And-
lot of things
exactly,
that
yeah, yeah.
happened over the
But still,
over the
it's
course
just
of the
it's
last 18
knee-jerk
months.
reaction. it
Oh, yes,
seems.
well, I call it concussion porn.
Yeah.
I mean, the media could not stop masturbating every time somebody got a head injury in rugby the last 18 months.
Thank God George Hook isn't on the TV at the moment.
Don't. I just
Well,
blotted it out.
that would stop anyone masturbating.
I just blotted it out.
That'll give you another 10 seconds, Dave.
They should show that in the whole public schoolboys instead of promo. I just show them pictures of George Hook.
Well, anyway, just look at some of the other games. The one match that I watched was the Ospreys against Connacht,
Yeah,
and I just knew once that ball was kicked off and there was 3 minutes left,
they were going to
I
give
just
up a
knew
bonus
Ospreys.
point.
I just knew it, and it kind of screwed us after we got 70 points
Yeah,
and the 5-pointer in the table that the Ospreys would
It's
get their 5-pointer.
unfortunately screws Connacht as well, but
But they were on
they
their
were screwed anyway.
they're on their last legs. I mean, they were literally getting fellas who fixed the bus.
Yeah, well, they're still at it now, and they've like if they had a full team, they've a shout at getting into the next round of Europe. They've a guaranteed 5-pointer against the Italians if they had certainly if they had a full team.
I think they've guaranteed 5 points against Italians with their current team. I mean, it's
Yeah, well,
Just
we-
about.
they have 15 good players.
Yeah,
You know?
we'll touch on Europe in the second half, but we'll just talk about the other Pro 12 games. So Glasgow beat Cardiff.
Yeah.
So Glasgow
There's
seemed
a
to be recovering somewhat. They had a bit of a ropey start. Ulster were
Didn't.
beaten by Scarlets, and they
Yeah,
had
they
a
were
guy.
unlucky. They were unlucky.
The penalty try decision was part of the carnage.
Yeah, they were unlucky. To go down there and off the back of some of their displays recently, to get in there and do themselves relative justice was not a bad result. You know what? It was a terrible result, but it wasn't a bad effort.
Their season is looking very like it's imploding.
No, I don't know about that. They're probably out of Europe, which is probably a good thing for them. I was looking at their at a lot of teams' run-ins, and Ulster have a lot of easy home games to come.
Okay.
They've 6 home games left. They've 1 in hand, and they've both Italians at home. Ulster could actually do a fair bit if they regroup and they're pretty much out of Europe. They could see it coming back at some point.
We just have to see what morale is like. I mean,
Yeah.
they might lose a few notable players to the Irish setup in January, February, March.
Well, Glasgow are going to lose an awful lot of players, and if they don't go well, they've also got a lot of hard games coming up. They have a lot of hard away games, and a lot of them are during the Six Nations when they're at their weakest. So they could well slip back, and you could see Ulster creeping in to the top 4, perhaps.
Are you giving them the kiss of death, John, like you did Cardiff?
It could be.
I think Ulster are going to lose a lot fewer players maybe than they had previous years.
Yeah.
Because they haven't got as many good players who are playing well.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, they have Henderson, Best, Payne's out.
Jackson, Payne will be back mid Six Nations, I think.
Is Henderson going to miss that many matches for Ulster?
Yeah, he looks like he's sewn into the 19 shirt for Ireland.
Yeah, he might be. He has use as a utility player already.
Great use.
Chris Henry is re-signed for another couple of seasons.
Yeah,
I'd like that.
He's a big player for them,
especially during Six Nations time.
Big leader. For
them.
them.
Like if you see, Henderson has played at 6 mostly in the in the Pro 12 and mostly for Ulster. So if you see him, Kutsia and Chris Henry as a back row.
Demented Molan's very good piece today on Irish Locks at the moment, and
actually saw a bit of that. Yeah.
Out of his 19 starts for Ulster under Les Kiss, 16 of them have been at 6.
At 6, yeah.
And in his 11 starts for Ireland under Schmidt, 9 of them have been at in the second row.
Yeah.
And kind of the conclusion that he drew from that, which kind of is because when Joe says what Joe says Joe gets. He's not that concerned about Henderson as long as he's playing. He's not concerned about where he's playing. I mean, he moved. They had to get a whole new player to allow him to move. Payne, for example. Payne was moved from 15 and they got Piatau in compensation. But there seems to be no concern about whether Henderson plays it at 4 or 6.
No, but he is that good that he can kind of slot in. But he's. I mean, let's face it.
Ulster, no. Sorry.
Ulster have more trouble.
He's not that good. He has that potential.
Okay.
But he's not actually that good. Is he as good as, say, Itoje? No. Is he as good as...
Not many people are.
He's not playing in the same team. He's not
the
type of team.
That's true. That's very true. He's not playing in a very strong team. But he has to start delivering.
Yeah, he does.
He really does have to start. Because we've been hearing about Ian, and I've been a big fan of his.
Maybe that might solve the Leinster second row problem.
Yeah, we've been hearing about Ian Henderson since the under-20s, right? And at the moment, would you have him or Delan?
I'd
love to have both of them. I think they're two fine players.
I mean, Ireland are very lucky to have them, but I mean... You'd kind of go with Delan. Delan's more a reliable kind of player, I think, than Henderson. Henderson, you never know what he's going to do, kind of thing.
Henderson's taller. He's more of a line-out forward. He's more... he's got more power than Delan. Delan's very powerful, but he's got more... He play more on the tight head side, I think.
He doesn't. He never does. No.
Okay.
He's
bullshit then.
He's lazy. He's not lazy. He is not a factor at the set piece. Very rarely is he used as a primary jumper by Ulster. Very rarely do Ulster dominate anyone in the scrums.
They used to.
They used to when they had loads of Africans.
Yeah, but in fairness, he's always on the blind side of the Ulster scrum anyway.
No, blindside actually. It may well be that he's never going to be a lock, and that
but
6 is actually.
But look at their pack, Dave. Like Ulster don't have a.
I mean,
seriously,
he's a significant player for them. But
well,
I think he's been injured quite a considerable.
I think he might lose that number 19 jersey to Ultan Deland. So if Ultan Deland keeps progressing the way he is,
they've got a few guys who are decent in the second row. Treadwell.
Yeah.
They've got Brown, they've got Alan O'Connor who's injured. Your man, South African guy, is okay. He's a good, solid player.
They have an awful lot of Magnolia players.
Yeah, so if they get that back row I'm talking about together, probably could see it at 8.
Look at their
and
props.
Henry at 7.
Look at their props.
their props aren't amazing either. But I'm just saying, if you can't do it all in one go, you know.
No, but like, just seems an odd signing was signing Rodney.
If Herbst gets back fit, you know, he's decent, and they probably muscle a decent loose head together between all of them.
Maybe the idea is to convert maybe Rodney into a loose head. Because he's quite a...
I'm not sure if that's a good idea.
He might be better suited than to the technical. It's funny we're talking about locks actually, because Colin Meehan tweeted us and asked, should we be concerned about the lack of game time / progress of our younger locks? For example, Maloney, Carney, and then he says Nagel as well.
I have a theory there. You've got Mick McCarthy, who isn't mentioned there.
He
Is
just mentioned younger locks, not
Okay, sorry.
immensely older locks.
Yeah, well, I just have a theory because McCarthy, Carney, Ross Maloney, all those guys are, and Nagel perhaps, have been taking a back seat recently to our friend Mr. Triggs. Now, Mr. Triggs is probably moving on at the end of the season.
It was mentioned earlier on, a game or two ago, that Nagel had been ill. So
I have a feeling that we know that Ross Maloney has been on a bulking program, which is fine, and probably why he hasn't got a lot of games. It's very hard to bulk up and do lots of weights when you're playing matches every week. So that's where he's at, and that's probably the only thing missing from his game, because he's a great young player and a great prospect for his age. He's very good head. Mick Carney, we've never really seen the best of in Leinster. I think
only in flashes, really.
Yeah. So I have a feeling that they're all being kind of queued up and being told, right, lads, get your act together, because there's going to come a time when we're going to have to pick the best out of you guys, and we want you all champing at the bit to pull that shirt off Hayden Triggs. And
I thought we'd seen kind of we'd reached a point with the selection for the Munster match in the Aviva. Because Nagel had gotten a couple of the big games, and he was starting in that game along with Toner, in what you could nominally say was a first choice selection. But since then, obviously, he got ill, and whatever happened, he's fallen off the radar, and Triggs has taken his opportunity.
And in the Pro 12 final in May, didn't we pick Maloney?
We did.
Well, I see Nagel as more of a replacement for Toner when he's away with Ireland. And a combination of him and maybe a shorter lock, because he is 6'7" or 8.
Yeah, well, maybe the new coaching, to a certain extent, there's a new coaching paradigm since those guys were came to, and maybe they say, no, we don't actually want shorter locks, we want 2 tall locks, because we have to generate. I mean, one thing actually that's very important for Leinster, because we'll be talking about in the second half, is we're playing against a much bigger pack.
Yeah.
So we do have to win first.
Well, we're playing against much bigger second rows anyway.
Yeah, we do have to guarantee set piece ball. So that might be an issue. That maybe they're playing these guys in these games to prepare them for the game against Montpellier. I don't know, but Maloney's he's still very young. Maloney's still what age is he?
23 or something.
That's
22.
nothing. That's nothing. So he's got plenty of time. Carney, we've seen good stuff from him. I mean, he looks like he might be the next Mike McCarthy sometimes.
Yeah.
But then he's not around long enough.
But there's no one kind of making this big... like, I thought Maloney, when he was picked for the Pro 12 final, that, he's going to be...
He's here.
Yeah, and that he's going to be somebody like Toner, like a slow burner. The Toner kind of came into his own probably in the last 3 years. And, now he's the starting lock for Ireland for the last probably 3 seasons as well. And I thought, well, that's, your man's going to do his apprenticeship and come through into the Leinster team. But he seems to have gone backwards this season.
Well, I say, I think he's been bulking. So
okay, well,
we'll see when he's a few extra kilos on him what happens.
But perhaps they looked at him and they saw his performance in the Pro 12 final and said, well, we've got to do something with him, because...
He got wiped out that day. He absolutely got wiped out by 2 relatively short guys as it happens.
But he's not the tallest himself. I mean, he's 6'5", I think.
Yeah.
He's not... Like, that's short. I know it's tall for a human, but it's short for a second row.
Yeah.
But sometimes a couple of inches in a line-out doesn't really make the big difference. It's around your ability around the pitch, and even ball carrying on the pitch. Well, just briefly going and touching on Europe, there was one game in Europe last weekend. Obviously,
got to be touched on.
Racing coughed up a bonus point, lost to Munster. Even though when I looked at the Racing team, I thought, okay, they made a lot of changes. But there's a lot of good bloody players in there.
A lot of guys have big contracts in it. I mean, they wouldn't put that team out in the top 14. I checked, and there would be if that was a top 14 match, they would have made 13 changes.
No, and any team that makes that many changes is going to be playing a lot of unfamiliar combinations,
Yeah.
which is possibly what that and a definite lack of commitment after the first 10
But
minutes.
like, did you hear O'Gara's?
He was
he
reefed
was
into the middle,
absolutely
scathing,
Yeah.
which may
And-
not be the wisest thing in the world.
And funny, one of the things that he mentioned was, he said, look, if you, and he basically name checked the entire Munster team with their age profile and said everyone
Yeah.
is between, I don't know, 25 and 29 sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he said, look at ours, everyone's plus 30.
That's the way to do it. That's the way Toulon do it. That's the way, like, you don't have much of a shelf life in a team like that because they're buying guys in at the top of their game, allegedly, usually when they're just going over the hill, in fairness. But, like, Dan Carter is, whatever age he is,
And
he's
Ali,
not
Ali Williams sitting on the bench. Like, I mean, God, how old is he now?
107 or something, yeah. So, well, he's nearly as old as Brad Thorne.
Nearly as old as me.
He's nearly as old as you. All those teams with the big money play that kind of a. They just play top trumps. They just get in whoever's in fashion and whoever looks good. Don't know. Toulon actually did the business and gelled a proper team together out of that when they had Johnny Wilkinson and Carl Heyman and all those guys.
But they were there long term. Like
They were, yeah.
You know,
They won that, or they lost that final to Cardiff in 2010, and then really kicked on from there. And they
but like
built.
Johnny was there for maybe 6 seasons.
And he really bought
Yeah.
into the place as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Whereas there's some guys coming in
Yeah.
and they're doing 2 years. Like say Johnny Sexton, even in Racing, comes in, the highest paid rugby player at that time, comes in, does 2 years, didn't really work out. Obviously,
Spent
he
a lot of
wanted
time
to
injured.
get
next
like
man in.
next guy. Oh my God, it's the highest
Yeah,
point scorer in Test history. He comes in, he'll do 2 years, and whoever's fashionable next will come back.
There's very few Johnny Sextons, or very
Johnny
few
Wilkinsons.
Johnny Wilkinsons, you know,
That's true.
in the world. I mean, he's an exceptional. He's apart from being an exceptional player, he's an exceptional character.
Yeah.
So it was a wise decision of Toulon to build a club around him. They didn't just sign top trumps, although they did. What they did was they signed the top trumps that would be complementary to the guy they were building their club around.
Yeah.
Um,
Racing don't have that,
No.
and you know,
But don't forget, like we've all been down to Toulon, and it is an amazing place insofar as the town revolves around a rugby club. I've been to Ras, I'm sure maybe you guys have as well. Like nobody
it's in Paris, you're
well,
lost.
but no one
Yeah.
even knows. Like it's all the shops that sell replica gear or knockoff gear is Paris Saint Germain. Like
Yeah.
there's no Racing.
every shop in Toulon is selling Toulon
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah, so fair play to Munster though. I mean, okay, they weren't. It wasn't like they were facing Zebre either. You know, they had some fairly competent players
did,
against
they did,
them,
yeah.
and they got the job done. They're looking fair. Like when you look at where they were a year ago, they are looking really, really good. They went. I think you said it last week, Dave. They went through the pain of, like they had their comfort blanket of Paul O'Connell, of Ronan O'Gara for a long time after the bulk of that team had moved on. So they never really rebuilt under that until really the two of them were gone. And once they did, it took a couple of seasons of pain, but they seem to be really, like they have their Ireland players, the like of CJ Stander, Conor Murray, O'Mahony, Zebo, Earls, those guys, Donica Ryan, like they are all excellent players. And last season you would have said, yeah, they've got those, but they've got nothing else. Now they've got the likes of Niles and Rory Scannell coming through. They've
James Ryan.
got James Ryan has made a good fist, a tight head. They've a lot of players that are getting into that stage. And as Raj was saying, they're all in the 25 zone, so you're going to get 10 years or 6 or 7, 8 years out of them anyway. So there's the guts of a good team that could threaten us all. I'd love to see. I know we went down there in Stevens Day. I'd love to see a full strength Leinster team
They did. They
at the
hammered them.
end of a season
But they hammered them. A full strength Leinster team hammered them.
in Lansdowne Road. Yeah.
I mean,
But that team
That
hadn't really, like that
team
was
hadn't
that was a
really
week
matured.
before Foley's death,
Yeah.
and it hadn't.
you'd want.
Probably-
Was that a maturing factor for the team?
I
think it might
You
have
have
been
to wonder,
Dave,
you know,
yeah.
that's
I
the
think
thing.
whether it's in Europe or in the Pro 12, if we meet them at the end of the season, I think it's going to be a cracking game. I really love to see us play against them, winner takes all, because they're really they're back at the level where you could really. See it being a
I'd say
good
they're more
match.
likely to be in a final this year than we are. Although I think we'll do better in Europe than they will.
Well, we'll talk about that
We'll see.
in the second half. Anyway, boys, thanks very much, and cheers for watching. Thanks.